Well, howdy, folks. How y'all is? Today, we're going to be talking about a publicly traded company that is trying to bankrupt its shareholders. We've seen this time and time again over the last 5 years, maybe a few years longer, if you include like the NFL and places like that. But we were talking about, I think their stock symbol is CBRL, I believe. It went public in 1981, and that's none other than Cracker Barrel. Now, Cracker Barrel is a place I went to when I was a child back in the 80s. You know, my parents had some friends that lived in Tennessee, and we actually went to the original one in Lebanon. And there was only a handful of them back then, just in Tennessee. And they used to have the big smoked, or the sugar-cured hams hanging in there. You could buy a whole ham. They were just absolutely delicious. Fantastic product. They stopped selling those years ago for whatever reason. But they've become more and more commercialized, and now they've went the way of Bud Light and Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima and on and on and on and on and on. But particularly like the way of Bud Light, because they started promoting all this gay stuff, and they definitely don't identify with their customer base. Your customer base is boomers. That's your primary customer base. And your boomers' children, which are Gen Xers that went there as kids. We're not into the gay shit, okay? We're not into all that fucking alphabet soup and shit. We want pancakes. We want, fucking sausage, bacon, grits, shit like that. That's what we're into, okay? So if you're just trying to bankrupt your company, I guess do it the way of Bud Light. I'd sure be pissed off if I was a stakeholder in that company, I'll tell you what. Because they just completely... They're just bankrupting themselves. I'm never going back to Cracker Barrel. I go there probably 4 or 5 times a year. When family comes through town or I'm in some town. Most towns now have a Cracker Barrel. It's a good place to go meet your older part of your family, like your boomers and all. Excuse me. But prices are reasonable. You can get pretty much anything you could possibly imagine. It's family friendly, or it was. You had a little game on the table, with the little pyramid game. You had the golf tees and all, so the kids could play with that. I remember playing that when I was a kid. They used to have the fresh apple juice. I don't know if they even still do it anymore. The apple cider, the fried apples. All those good things that everybody likes. And for whatever reason, they decided to go the way of Bud Light. I don't know. I have not drank a Bud Light in over 2 years now, however long it's been. They used to be the beer I bought all the time. I have not bought a single one. Last year, a year and a half ago, so when all this is really taking hold in the whole Bud Light scandal, the Dollar General had Bud Light for $5.95 a 12-pack. And I was tempted because I was like, damn, that is cheap. That's 50 cents a beer or whatever, 60 cents a beer, 55 cents. But I was like, no, I ain't going to do it. I don't give a fuck if they give it to me. And what's funny about it is a lot of people had the same sentiment. There would be no beer left in the beer case except for Bud Light. And Bud Light was by far a third of the price of all the rest of them. And that just goes to show you, we're sick of it. We're sick of that shit. I can't believe a company is that stupid to pull that shit again. Look what it's done to Disney. Does anybody go to Disney anymore? Does anybody go to Disney movies anymore? Does anybody drink Bud Light anymore? Does anybody buy Uncle Ben's anymore? Does anybody buy what is it called? Pearl Milling products? Who the fuck's Pearl Milling, No, not gonna buy it. Not buying Cream of Wheat. You want to destroy your brand, go for it. But I just don't understand why you had a good solid, base that you completely turn on your base of customers. That makes no sense unless you're trying to bankrupt the company. And I think that's what's going on. I think there's more to the story than what we know. I think that people get on these boards and stuff, their whole desire is to bankrupt the company for whatever reason. It's either to make it less valuable so they can do a hostile takeover or whatever. That's the only thing that really makes sense, is that they get some board members that know that this will bankrupt them or drive the share prices so low they can do a majority buyout. I think the Federal Trade Commission needs to look into stuff like this, because I'm pretty sure it's the only logical thing that makes sense. whoever runs a company has to know what their base is. Boomers, Gen Xers, that's your base. Boomers and Gen Xers don't like, the alphabet soup. We're not into gay shit. We're not into all that crap. So why would you do that? Why? Why would you do that? The whole point of going to a Cracker Barrel in the first place is because it's like nostalgia. It's like going back to a nice family setting, in the 1980s when you were a kid. When I walk in there, I think, damn, I remember this. This reminds me of being at home in 1985, sitting and having family dinner when people used to sit down and have family dinner, when people used to have families, for that matter. Get done with dinner and go watch the A-Team or whatever, watch some wrestling. Those times are so far removed, and everything that happens, like Cracker Barrel doing shit like this, just further and further alienates the family unit, the morals, godliness, all the things that are the foundations of this country. So who's involved with this? Whoever's on the board at Cracker Barrel obviously wants to destroy the company. There's no doubt about it. That's plain and simple. It's either some 501c3, shell company that's owned by George Soros or somebody, or it's somebody that's wanting to drive the price so low that they can just take it over. But if that's that don't really make sense either, because if you're going to do that, then what do you have left when you're done? You gonna get that girl from the jeans commercial and come do a video, come show that you eat biscuits and shit with us and cornbread. We need you to come and wear some really tight ass jeans. We gotta save this motherfucker, I mean, what's the point of that? So to me, it's just another way, I think, of it's another degradation of society. It's a way for some one world government entity, 501c3 entity, to try to destroy another American value that people hold dear to them. So, as of this point now, I'll never go back to Cracker Barrel. And they got me, I'd say 4, 5, 6 times a year I'd go to Cracker Barrel, every couple of months to meet family or something, or even if me and Mrs. Chef's on a road trip or something and there was a Cracker Barrel, we might pull in and have breakfast or something, you know what I mean? No more. I'll go to the mom and pop place. I'll pay the extra $2 a plate to have to sponsor and support a small business owner other than a big conglomerate that's obviously ran by globalists. Okay? Plain and simple. So I suggest to you guys do the same thing. Go out there and support your mom and pop places and give these places like Cracker Barrel the big bird. Boom. It's what you get. It's what you deserve. Go broke. Close all your stores down. Adios. You had a great concept. You fucked it up. Same thing, Bud Light. Cheers up, buddy. I pour one out for you right now. So sad for your fucking funeral. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think, because I think my logic's about the only logical thing. It's one of those two things. Otherwise, you wouldn't do that to yourself. So please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. I'm curious to know. Deuces, everybody.